Hi, it's Kamon Reynolds, and the fall flow is going nuts right now. I mean, there's nectar falling out of combs, there's pollen falling out of combs. We're not doing it intentionally, but it just happens from time to time. I want to show you these two colonies. They're the weakest two on this pallet, and we have 11 pallets in this yard. But not all the bees are great. We found one earlier, and the patterns just don't look that good. The queen's starting to fail. We're going to end up combining it with a colony that's medium sized that needs a boost, and they're just not going to make it. It's too late to try to fix things in Tennessee. It's the middle of September. I think it's around like the 16th or 17th, whatever it is. It is just going crazy, just pollen after pollen basket. But look at these bees. This one right here is kind of really cool to me because this was an empty spot a little over a month ago, probably a month and a week. And I had a couple 5-frame nukes over here. I really like to raise extra queens for myself and to have these extra nukes that'll have 3 frames of brood or so whenever I need them. And it's way beyond what you can buy for a queen fix, because the queen is proven. We know that she's good. She's got this cohort of bees, and we're not just giving a awesome queen, we're giving this whole energetic bit of brood and energy. And so I plugged it into this spot right here. There was no bees. And then I have all of the other pallets in this yard and these two right here, and some of them are too big. And I was afraid they were going to swarm late in the year, so I pulled a frame of capped brood and I added 3 frames of capped brood on top of the 3 that they had. And so I plugged all that together. I've probably given them 4 gallons of sugar syrup, and I have this really nice colony that's going to overwinter. And so instead of this being a dead out space, I just raised an extra queen, kept it in a nuke box, and now fixed it. So let's check and see what's going on down in here. This is another big colony right here. We're probably going to add maybe a box of foundation. It's getting a little late in the year. I'm really leaning more towards just adding a honey super or a deep box of comb, and they're not going to fill it up all the way, but I just want them to not plug out because I need the queens to lay full throttle. These bees are so important. Look at all of this pollen right here. We have some drone brood. We have beautiful, evenly uniform looking capped brood right here. The coloration of the cappings is very uniform. That looks awesome. And we're seeing the same thing over in here. This is just super healthy. We're seeing a lot of young bees emerging. That's so important. And as you've probably noticed, there is these oxalic acid strips right here, and I love them. But folks, with any of the treatments, I don't care what company it is, and I know all of them, and there's a lot of nice people that work for them. I got a couple bees that don't like me. I'm in their way. I didn't smoke the bees before we started the video either. Don't do that. Don't watch these YouTubers. You can get in trouble that way. They're great companies, but it's a very difficult situation. You know, how the colonies are, the temperature, how much treatment. Are you treating a 4% mite load, a 1% mite load? And you don't know unless you check. And so it's kind of unfair sometimes for the product to fix everything, especially if it's a really high mite load. So we've done multiple treatments, and I love these strips on top of a good treatment. So we've been doing some thymol this fall, or late summer, and we also did oxalic acid strips prior to that. And it's just constantly keeping those mites low to where they're not affecting our bees. It's all about percentages with the bees. I mean, just look at these things. We're winning the percentage game right here. And my goal is after they are done for the brooding period of fall, they're gonna lose all of their old forager bees and have nothing left but winter bees. And I'm hoping to have a good 8-frame or larger cluster. If you have a good 8-frame cluster with a lot of honey and they're healthy, oh man, you can't kill those bees in Tennessee. I don't care what kind of winter you think that we've had. I've been keeping bees here for 20-something years, and I've come to learn that if you have really strong bees with plenty of food, I'm gonna make sure I have this box right here mostly full. And this fall flow has been really awesome, so I doubt I'll do much feeding. It's just gonna be going through the yard, and okay, 25% of the colonies need a little bit of a top off. That's probably what we're going to end up doing. We did feed, like I said, we did feed these a little bit over the last month, trying to get some momentum for this fall flow so they'd be at their best, so they could really capitalize on it. And you know, little splits like this one that are now large, that little boost right there made all the difference. They didn't slow down one bit. And now they're able to fully capitalize on all this natural stuff. And so this is where I differ of the opinion that sometimes feeding some of the supplemental stuff can really help us gain more of the real stuff when it arrives. And this colony is totally doing that. Let's check this whopper right here. I know I'm gonna have to add a box for this one. All right, holy smokes. Yeah. And the fall flow's not over yet either. The weather looks very cooperative. Our inspections are really quick right now. We don't need to see all these frames of bees. And they've been really gentle today besides this colony right here. But look at this, this is great. We're seeing a lot of young, healthy, pearly white larvae. We're seeing capped brood. Some people are gonna say, hey, Kamon, you have queen cells here, you're in trouble. That's super normal right there. Those queen cups, any strong colony like this is gonna have at least a dozen of those, probably more. And that's just fine. They just have them lying around. And just because you see an egg in one doesn't necessarily mean you're in trouble either. So I'm just seeing young brood over here. I'm seeing everything I need. I see a little bit of eggs. I see a good brood pattern on the next frame. I see plenty of bees. I lifted that box off and trust me, they've got plenty of food. So the only thing I'm gonna do is add a little bit of space so they don't plug out, because the last thing I want is for the fall flow to be epic, because that's just the way it is. When I don't want it to be epic, it is, and when I need it to be, it's not sometimes. But I don't want them to plug out so much that instead of getting 5 frames of solid brood equivalent in the hive, I only end up getting 3. Because they're so plugged out. And it doesn't mean they're not going to survive, but I'll end up with a 5-frame cluster of bees or thereabouts versus an 8 or larger. And so you can overfeed your bees, and there's several hobbyists that, you know, they're new beekeepers, they don't know. It's a fair question. When should I stop feeding? And there are some people that will say just keep feeding until they stop taking it. That's the dumbest thing. I'm sorry, that's not very nice. That is a very ignorant thing to say. Bees are honeybees for a reason. They don't stop when they have enough. That's why they can make 100, 200 pounds of surplus, and in the right conditions, 300 pounds in a year. In places like Hawaii and certain parts of Canada. It's because that's the way they're programmed. I don't know, that's the way they do it. They will take 500 gallons of sugar syrup if they're healthy enough and have enough space to do it. They'll swarm first, but you get what I'm saying. So we, as new beekeepers, you guys do not want to just feed. You could actually end up limiting the queen on her laying space, and they also need some empty space to cluster. The bees like to stick their heads in the cells, and what you'd like to have, let's say there's a cluster here, and I'd like to have a cluster that's like this, a nice big round cluster. It goes over the top of the frames, it goes underneath the frames. That is a prime cluster. That's what I would consider. Once it warms up, that's going to cover about 8 to 10 frames of space. But in the center of that, it's not going to be solid honey. There's going to be some empty cells, and there's bees that stick their heads inside the cell, and they actually, it helps them get a better temp that way, and they'll warm it up from inside those cells, and they really like to do that. So if you have everything plugged up solid with food, it also inhibits some of their clustering. You don't want to plug them up too much. And again, I'm going to be adding a honey super to this. What's going to happen is when I add that honey super, they might, if it's an awesome year, they might fill up 2/3 of it. You know, maybe even a full one. I don't think so, but it's possible. More than likely, I'll end up with 2 or 3, 5 frames of actual honey, and I could extract that, but I have fed recently, and I don't want to extract again. Laurel says no more. We're tired of it. And the bees also, some of them could use it. And so what we'll do is we'll take all those honey supers, we'll stick them off about 100 and something feet, probably in late October, mid-October on a 50, 60 degree day, and they'll just forage it out in one day, boom, done. They'll put it back wherever they want it, and my supers are cleaned out. Some people say, well, that's not a good way to do things. I ain't got time for anything else. So let's check this upper box right here, see what's going on, and then we'll call this video. Got some floats. Oh yeah. That's how you know you've got some good weight. Woo, look at all those bees. Just pollen basket after pollen basket. I was in their way. So you see I have a couple floats down in here. I just don't think there's any room up. Woo. They say smoke follows beauty. Who am I to argue? Oh goodness, that one got me good. Whoa. We have brood all the way to the wall on this thing. Look at the pollen. There's not a lot of brood in here. But look at all of this food. That pollen is so important. We're so blessed this year that we've had just the right amount of rain to be able to get this nectar to come in, which the bees just look so healthy. And then all this pollen right here that's going to give us the healthiest and fattest of bees. Oh man, look at that nectar right there. Oh, there's the queen over there. Man, that's why you got to be careful. Get back here. Case in point, that girl has no room to lay. If she's all the way here on the wall, she's got no room to go. Oh, there's a varroa mite. Check it out, Laurel. It's on the back of that bee right there. Wow. We might need to drop a little bit more. We're dropping on a few of the colonies some thymol today. Looks like this one could probably use a touch up as well. Now what we don't want to do is crush our queen. There you are. There you go. And when they're this full, it's also kind of a pain not to crush any bees either. So we're going to smoke down that channel right there. Try to get, yeah, there we go. And that way we don't crush any bees. You know, some people say you don't need to use smoke. Sometimes you don't. Depends on the disposition of the bee, but it really is a nice tool just to move the bees around a lot of times for their protection as much as anything. And that really helps. We've got to get a little bit of thymol in here. We've done a lot of cleanup, and we've done some formic and we've done some thymol. But apparently there's still some mites around here, so more work to do, Laurel. It's time to get busy. Overall, this colony looks good. The brood pattern looks good. I'm liking what I'm seeing, but we might need to do a little bit of an alcohol wash or two on this one, just to double check. It could be a random one after the last treatment, or there could be still a serious infestation in here. And a lot of times it's your biggest ones that are able to hide the most amount of mites because they're the healthiest and they can handle it for longer. But then if they collapse, the rest of the yard can get it. So time to get back to work, Laurel. See you in the next video.